Alright, so the kit that I got, I actually went to 4-wheel parts for. It's made by Pro Comp, which is like a 4-wheel parts brand. And it's going to raise it 2 1/4 inch in the front, so it can literally be like, instead of the truck like this, it's literally going to level out the truck. That's why it's a level lift. But here's the pieces here. These are the new nuts that are going on it. And then these are going to go on the top of the strut, both these. And then these are going to go on the bottom of the strut. And I was contemplating between doing, you know, maybe there's kits that just have this, and then there's kits that are just like this. So this one's a little bit different because these are a little bit thinner, so you're getting the top and the bottom lifted, which I've never done that before. The only other lifts and levels that I've done have been like the Rancho leveling strut, and then like the block that's made by Rancho as well that goes underneath the strut. So this one's going to be a little bit different, but I'm going to have Dave, of course, certified mechanic. He's going to help me install this. Now this isn't my vehicle, but you can see I'm doing a leveling kit because if you see in the front, it is not necessarily the same size as the rear when you kind of back up and look at it. So the leveling kit will be in the front, and it'll level it out 2 inches in the front to where it raises this to where it's literally a level ride. So all we've actually done so far is just take off the wheels and tires on it, and then dropped it because it's on the rack, and we've dropped it to where we can actually get to the bolts that are on top of the strut. I will come from a different view where you can kind of see a little bit better. So this is actually going to be on the driver's side, but we're going to take an 18mm bolt, and we're going to take these 3 bolts off to get the top of the strut. So as you can see on both sides, we took off the 3 nuts that are on top. Kind of hard to see from here, but yeah, you can't really see, but they're down here, and there's 3 of them, and there's these 3. Now like I said, this kit, this is going to go on top, and then this is going to go on bottom. So essentially that big hockey puck looking thing is going to be going up top up here, and then that bottom piece is going to be right down in here. So these 2 bolts that we just took out were the ones that are actually start from the bottom. They're right here, and they go up through these holes right here. So we started by removing, so we have the top of the strut and the bottom of the strut loose.
Okay, so now we got the strut loose on top, on bottom, and with the spacers we're putting in, we're going to need more room to maneuver it in with the installation. So we're going to have to separate the upper control arm from the knuckle. So we're going to disconnect the speed sensor here, take this clip out here, this clip out here, and just kind of let this hang out here. And then we're going to come under here, take this nut off, separate the ball joint from the control arm, and then probably going to separate the tie rod from the knuckle as well. That way we can slide the knuckle out of the way, and the upper control arm's not in the way, and we can slide it right in without having to fight it. So we're going to do that, and we'll get right back to it.
So right now, like he said, he's disconnecting the speed sensor, just so when we do drop it down here, once everything is loose, everything is pretty much just going to drop. So we don't want to yank that speed sensor out or cause any more problems than what we're trying to do right now.
One other thing I forgot to mention, we're going to disconnect the brake line as well, because you never want to put too much tension on that brake line, because once we disconnect this upper control arm, this knuckle is going to want to fall forward, and that's going to put a lot of tension on the brake line. You don't want that, so we're going to disconnect that too, just for safety.
So after we disconnected everything, we're kind of letting the sensor just hang up here. We took the 10mm bolts off of this just to kind of get that separated, and now we're going to zip this bolt off.
Okay, he's going to take care of the other one on the other side, and while he's doing that, I'm going to take this 18mm bolt off right here on the upper control arm. Once you get this upper control arm nut loose, leave it hooked in there, so when you do separate the two, the knuckle doesn't come swinging down and, you know, hit you in the chest or in the stomach there, because there's a lot holding that thing together. So once that separates, it's going to want to boom. So I always like to leave a little bit of threads on the nut so that way when it separates it doesn't completely come out on its own.
That's what he's talking about, is leaving it kind of right here, not taking the bolt, this bolt, not taking it all the way out. You know, like he said, just because you don't want this whole assembly to just literally come down and just fall on you. So that's what he was talking about.
All right, now we got to separate the tie rod end from the knuckle, and 9 times out of 10 they're going to be stuck in there, so you got to hit it with a hammer or a pickle fork, but sometimes the pickle fork is going to damage the boot, so he's going to start whacking at it with a hammer. There she goes.
Popped right out.
Easy. And then he's going to take care of the other side here just a sec.
Right, just in case we lost you during any part of this, we took off the 3 bolts that are up top here. We took off the 2 bolts that are down here, disconnected this, took the 10 mil bolt, disconnected that, and that is pretty much where we are. Disconnected the wheel speed sensor and just letting that kind of hang over like that. And that's kind of where we're at. All right, so this might be a little bit of the tricky part just because of the angle right here. Like when you're trying to hit the hammer, it's kind of like a not so good area here. But we're gonna be doing the same thing that we just did with the hammer, and we're gonna be hitting the hitting with the hammer right here so we can get this to loosen and pop out. You could use a pickle fork if you do have that in a situation, but if not, I mean, we're gonna take the hammer. That's usually the traditional way. All right, so as you can see, we left the bolt down here just so it doesn't fly out or anything like that, but the bolt, like he said, if you leave a little bit threaded on, but he was banging right here so that it can loosen up so it can pop out of the top. So that's what that was. And it took a little bit longer, and a little more, you know, oomph to it, just because this is thicker than this right here. And this side was a little bit more of a pain, but again, took the mini sledge or the heavy duty hammer, just hit it right here and got it to pop out up top there. And again, we did not unthread it all the way. It is still threaded just so that everything just doesn't fall down, but that's what that is on this side.
All right, so now that we got the knuckle separated from the upper control arm, now we got to go ahead and compress that back in so we can get that nut taken off, so that way the upper control arm comes all the way out, and that way the knuckle will come forward freely. So now what I like to do is set a piece of wood up here and use the spring as kind of leverage with the pry bar. So I'll just come in like this. You see how it shoved that back down. You can get your hand in there, take that bolt take that nut all the way off. There she goes.
So now after we took the control arm off, everything just kind of, like Dave was saying, everything just kind of fell forward. So this is kind of the situation that we're dealing with right now. Everything is essentially out of the way, so that we can, you know, get to the shock and we can get to business. All right, so I know some instructions say to take out the sway bar end link. I think we have enough room here. You can see this room at the top. I think we have enough room to wiggle it out where we're not gonna have to do that. If we do, we'll obviously record it, but I think we'll be all right. So he's gonna go ahead and take that shock out. And sometimes these can be a pain to maneuver out. So, and we're going to transfer the parts. We're going to put the new parts on this.
One other thing is always remember which one was your center or your front one, because there is a right way and a wrong way for these screws to fit in up on top, and especially for this bottom part because they're angled in. So you get it all back together and you're in backwards, you're not going to be too happy because it's not going to sit in there right. So just some food for thought.
So this is going to go on top of the strut. So Dave's gonna actually just line it up and throw it on top of the strut right here.
And there is they only go on one way too, so you can't ever get these wrong. And then it comes with new nuts for it too, because obviously you're not gonna have as much room as you did with the old nuts that were there for it. So we'll just get everything put back in. These are going to be up on top, and then we're going to shim this spacer down here on the bottom, and then that is clean.
All right, so this is what it's gonna look like. There is the spacer for the top, and then it's kind of hard to see, but we got that on the bottom as well, and we threaded the bolts in just hand tight, just enough. But yeah, that's essentially what it looks like. We're gonna go ahead and do the other side, then tighten it. And we got the other shock in, and same thing, spacer up front, up top, and then on bottom here. This might be a little bit better of an angle just because it's a little bit more spacey over here, so I just wanted to give another view. Now to put everything back together, I'm going to tighten these two bolts that are underneath here, and literally, you know, as mechanic fashion, I'm gonna literally do everything reverse. The same way that we took them off, we're gonna put them on the same exact way. So I will show you a video once that is done. So these are actually the old nuts that were on top of the shock that we took off. And these are going to be the new ones. So what Dave was saying, because he's the mechanic here, you know, we took these off with air tools. What we're going to want to do is put these ones on with hand tools, just so that we don't snap them or run into any more problems. Now this is the finished product of the 4-wheel parts. It's Pro Comp. It's the 2 1/4 inch leveling kit. As you can see, it sits literally level. So Dave even took a tape measure to it, and he said it's like almost money how perfect it is. So that's it.